Energy. It is all around us, both seen and unseen. It affects all the lives within humanity, our great planet Earth, and the entire universe. It is a conscious, cosmic matrix, an ever-evolving cycle, creating, breaking down, and recreating. This is Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Andrea tells us that energy is the foundation of our human experience, intrinsically affecting every facet of our lives, our perceptions, choices, and actions, as well as the challenges, opportunities, and people we attract. So now, please welcome the host of Connected, Andrea Dragonfly.
Hey, good people. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Andrea Dragonfly, and this is the show Connected, where we look at how everything that happens in our lives is connected to us on some sort of energetic way. We've been talking for the last few weeks around karmic relationships and intimate partnerships. And last week we dove in and started to talk about casual encounters and how we can, when we meet random people, are we accruing new karma with them, or are we meeting new people and we already have maybe karma with them from a past, life incarnation? So we started looking at, where does these relationships really go? And we're looking at the karmic outcomes, right? And so what I'd like to just kind of get back to is that, with karma, we're really looking at what is like Newton's third law of motion. And I haven't probably said this, I didn't say it last week. I may have said it earlier on in, the intro to karma. But we're really looking at action reaction. And so just a little review of last week in casual encounters is that everything that we do, there's an intention behind it, and the intention is to do some sort of harm, let's just say. So we talked about casual encounters, and if a person comes in and, just has a lens on life where the glass is half empty and life is challenging and life is, always causing a person to have experiences upset or whatever, when they come into a relationship, they're going to bring that. That's part of their energetic makeup, right? And they have an opportunity to work that through. But if you're coming into a new relationship and that person's always grumpy, or that person's always kind of complaining about something, so there can then be an encounter that isn't going to have the best outcome, depending if that other person, the other person who's dating that person, has a reaction to it. So you could just be like, oh goodness, I dated that person, it just didn't work out. They were just, full of anger, or they just had a pessimistic outlook on life, whatever. So those are types of energetics that are going to show up within all of our relationships, whether we're dating, whether we're in intimate partnership with somebody, and also just how we interact with everybody in our lives, whether it's our family, our friends, our community, our colleagues, the people at the store, the people at the gas station, wherever we are. It's really about the energy that we're putting into something, right? And so with the casual encounters, just a little bit of a review. We talked about how if we come into an encounter and we're like, okay, yeah, we dated, you're not necessarily the person for me, I respect you, I honor you, we're actually accruing an energetic that's positive because we're being positive in that scenario. If we come into that scenario where they're curmudgeon-y and they're like, pessimistic or not very positive, always having a negative energy, and we walk away and we have ill feelings towards them, we're still creating our own version of energetic karma. It may not be with them, but we will feel the effect of that in another relationship down the way. So when we think about karma, And karma, of course, there's so many different ways to understand it. And whatever you already know, I invite you to add this to what is in your repertoire of karmic knowledge already. And if this is new to you, then again, find other sources too to expand, because there's so many ways we can talk about this. And these different perspectives and viewpoints only just like really kind of highlight a window as to how we can see all of this, right? So the more you learn, the more you expand into all of it. When we are in these casual encounters, and sometimes we have like a one chance meeting with somebody, and we have that interaction, and it can be lovely, right? You could have this lovely time. You both have, had a pleasant, joyful, loving, exciting experience with each other. You guys part ways, there doesn't necessarily have any energetic negative karma that we're going to pay out. We can bring in good karma. We can have more of those types of connections with people. And it doesn't have to be intimate, it doesn't have to be sexual. It just is that we're putting out, the energy that we put out is the energy in which we get back. And so that it's the law of action and reaction. And so the energetic, so if you're putting out positive love towards somebody, you're going to get positive love back. If you're going to give out negative frustration or upset with somebody, you're going to get that back as well. Now, when we create karmic relationships, really there's something there that is within the soul. Usually there's something that happens that can be some sort of challenge, or it could even be a trauma. It could be many things that create like a splintering in the soul that we then need to go and mend, either within this lifetime or within the next lifetime. And oftentimes we can create that kind of connection with that person. So if it's a one chance meeting, and let's, for example, say, I used this before last week, there's a pregnancy involved. And, and by all means, we're talking about so many different types of people on the planet that these things happen, right? So I'm just using this as our example. And then with that pregnancy, even within that space, if the woman chooses to share that with the man and the man rejects her and doesn't want anything to do with that, now, of course, there's multiple scenarios of that, right? Can even get into, like abortion, which that's a whole nother level of energetics that maybe if we have enough time, I'll even talk about. Or if he just doesn't want to be bothered by any of it, there is an energetic karma that's created. And it may not necessarily be with that woman. If that woman chooses to have that baby and raise that baby alone, hopefully maybe she has a family community that can help support her in that endeavor, of course, right? Sometimes it's, we need a village to raise a child, right? There is that possibility that even in that, it could be it could be the woman even paying out the karmic imbalance from a previous lifetime, where maybe she would have been the man that said, nope, sorry, I don't want anything to do with that relationship. I'm going to, not call you back. I'm not going to engage with you. I'm just going to take off and get lost, kind of a thing. And so this is where karma really begins to play out. So whatever we're experiencing in this lifetime, we're also, again, with that third law of motion, that we are going to experience it to its equal and opposite effect. So the equal and opposite effect means if this person says, no, I don't want anything to do with you, that's your problem. You decide however it's going to be. And that woman decides that she's having that baby and going to raise it on her own. Then in the next lifetime, that man may become the woman and have a very similar experience, because again, equal and opposite energetic that comes with it. And the opposite is just that it goes out back, comes back to us. So we're going to have and experience that within ourselves. And so this is for all the different things we were talking about last week. We talked about just casual encounters, dating, one chance meetings. We even talked about within a a marriage. And sometimes people within the marriage, there can be consented where they're allowing their partner to go be intimate with another person within, which would be called non-monogamy. And then there's also those partners who are in committed relationships who are going out and committing adultery or infidelity, right? And so that energetic is going to come back to them. And so even if, the one partner A is the one that is having these extracurricular experiences, affairs, let's just say, and partner B feels the betrayal or feels the betrayal, feels that wound, the trauma, there could be that karma between them that then is going to be played out in a future life, in a new incarnation. However, no matter what it is, whoever's doing the act that is out of balance. Again, this is all about balance. This is about our soul bringing us to these places, people, situations, experiences, and events to bring ourselves back into balance. And we've had multiple lifetimes. We're going to talk about when a brand new soul gets incarnated for the very first time. And usually, and that's a whole nother topic that we can talk about. And but most of us have had multiple lifetimes. And within those multiple lifetimes, we're here to work out the karmic imbalances, right? And so within that place, again, whatever energy we're putting out, if it's imbalancing energy, it's going to come back to us and we're going to experience it in the equal kind of energetic and the opposite way. So it's going to come back to us and we're going to experience it in the same way we're putting it out there. And so there are multiple different shows that have been talking about karma. I've been talking about reincarnation. And even when we go through life to death and we go through the death to life process, and I believe that's earlier on in the first several shows, there's this opportunity for us to have this reflection about who have we been in our lifetime? What was the effect that I had on others? And this also helps kind of energetically prepare us for what we're going to come in for the next lifetime. But with these karmic imbalances, these energetics that are being created within different types of relationships, I also talked about how, for the most part, these are consensual, of course, except for that part of infidelity, right? These are consensual relationships where the two partners are coming together in agreement to have usually some sort of, intimate interaction, whatever that looks like. And then we want to look at what does it look like when we are not in that place? When we're having a powerful experience, which I spoke earlier in last week's show, that these are sensitive topics. These are very powerful, potentially life altering experiences that people can have that can then shape part of their human experience. And so these can also be seen as different types of traumas. So when a person is not consenting, they're not giving permission, right? They're not giving the permission for another person to invade their personal space. And so when we're looking at this type of energetic, I really we're going to dive in after our next commercial, which is coming up here shortly. We're going to dive into this, but we're going to really look at again, coming back to that cause and effect, to that action and reaction, and looking at it from the difference between what we could see as our personality, which we come in with. Also, we can look at that from our ego. Personality, ego. We all have different personalities. We all show up in different ways. And these personalities are actually very specific for the incarnation that we're coming in for. These personalities have different components and attributes to them that are bringing in different scenarios, right? So we have our personality and we also have our soul. And of course, we talked about how we have the corporeal body. We also have our etheric body, we have our astral body, and then we have what would be considered our personality and our soul body and our spirit body. And of course, there's multiple ways to see these through different wisdom traditions. And so I'm kind of like, talking about two specific ones and kind of putting them together in a way that makes most, easiest sense for everybody. But within that, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we get back from this commercial, we're going to dive into looking at the personality versus the soul and how we experience different types of trauma, especially around non-consented experiences. So I'll see you back here in 2.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back. So we are looking at the deeper experience of karma and about how when we are in these really intense experiences, we often can find ourselves looking at, the situation and asking ourselves the question, why me? Why did this happen to me? And I want to talk about how this experience of humanity, our personal life experience, actually is a series of these balancing energies, like I was just talking about what we've done throughout our past lives and in this life is going to come through the soul, bringing us again to these people, to the situation, to the experience for us to to heal. It's an opportunity for us to heal on a level that then allows us to kind of bring ourselves back into right relationship or balance. So if we are these beings who are having a human experience, ultimately we are looking at having the whole human experience of like the whole human condition, which is going to be everything that we can imagine and a little bit of that in between, right? Like if we think about all that we know, all that we see through, the world, through the news, through television, through stories, movies, all that kind of stuff. We're also learning, we're informing our spirit. We're growing and we're learning how to navigate what it is to be a human. And we may have multiple lifetimes where we're really stuck in it. And we might have We just talked about how the glass might be half empty and the person might be very pessimistic or very negative, or they might just see the world as the world's against me. We may have some of those lifetimes throughout our growth, the information of growing our spirit forward. And then we will have these other lifetimes where we may have like far more positive experiences and joy and pleasure. And maybe we were born into a very loving family with resources and community, and so that we haven't had a lot of adversity in our lives. And then we have, but no matter what, we're still going to have the roller coaster. So if a person was born without the resources, without a loving family, they're going to have, some challenges coming in to say, how am I safe? How does this world work for me? And so we have these extremes, and then we have all the experiences in between, because no matter what, to be human, we're going to have obstacles. We're going to have opportunities for us to overcome. And again, they come from our past lives. They come from what we're doing in this lifetime. And then also if we're experiencing something. And so even so, people can experience random things. So when I even talked about like unconsented interactions, there's so many people within humanity. And just first of all, I want to say that this is a sensitive subject. And so, but being able to talk about it, we want to look at that, our experiences are experiences, and they have, potency, and they can really drive us forward in different ways, which means that we can either look at what happens to us through, like, for example, rape, abuse, violence in other ways, even, rape and incest within the family lineage. So, we're looking at kidnapping and being imprisoned, human trafficking. Like, the world has some horrendous scenarios that we can just kind of be like, oh yeah, that's there, right? And of course we know that's there. Not oftentimes do we want to look at that because it's hard to look at. However, these are these opportunities that grow us. And either I'm going to talk about it from, first of all, just being a witnessing this, because we're looking at these as something for us not to judge, first and foremost. Of course, we can say, I don't want that to happen to me, and we can have compassion. This is where that higher energetic, this is where we expand our consciousness, because ultimately through the whole trajectory of the human experience is about overcoming these obstacles and these challenges. When we get back to the personal versus the soul, the personality is like, why did this happen to me? Like, and of course we can then have soul loss, which I talked about that in previous shows. And again, I'm going to even go deeper and have a whole show based on just exactly how that works and how we work with the healing of the soul loss, right? But a soul loss, when a soul piece is missing, we no longer are operating at our best self. There's there's the trust, there's the safety, there's the intimacy, there's love. There's a major wound that has happened there that kind of takes us out from really being able to fully be present in our relationships, our intimate partnerships, especially if we don't heal that. And so that's why many people who have had these experiences are looking for the healer. They're looking for the therapist. They're looking for the energy healer, the soul, practitioner to help do soul retrievals and that type of thing. However, this is not necessarily a personal thing. And this is why I want to say this is a sensitive conversation. This is just part of us informing and growing our spirit forward. It's also part of us bringing possibly ourselves back into balance if we had a life incarnation in the past where we were out of balance, where we created the actual energetic for it to kind of come back to us. And of course, we've had multiple lifetimes, and we've been men and women in these different lifetimes as well. And so we're having these experiences based on what's happening in our culture, what's happening during that period of time. And so, I mean, we just think about war and warring. And, I watched some shows like the Vikings, and I've watched, and we just look at history, like there's just warring tribes that have done certain things. And so, even on the other side of that, we are looking at balancing the energy in any way that we might have done that in some other place and time. When we look at that, again, the horrors of humanity is often the way I refer to certain things because, I've studied a lot of marginalization, especially with women and especially with children and all the things that are happening in the world. And of course, my heart is full of compassion. And it's not a place for me to judge because in these places, I don't know what these people's karma is. I don't know what their previous incarnations entailed. I don't know that, what is happening for them isn't an opportunity, or they're on their healing process of rebalancing themselves. Because when we rebalance ourselves, we complete that. Now, we can also, for certain, create new karmas along the way, right? But we can clear these old karmas by actually being fully at the effect of our own doing somewhere else down, previously down, our karmic lifeline. And then whatever we're doing now, again, we get it in this lifetime or we may get it in our next lifetime. So karma is really this, it's kind of like a checks and balances. It's this way for us to be responsible for our energy. And so in that responsibility, this is like a guiding light, this is a guiding force. It's not a moral situation. Of course, the actions that we do have morality, but to be within the effects of that, it's not that morality is a social construct of the personality. These things are the healing of the soul. So if we can look at them from different perspectives, when we're in our personality and in our ego, we look at, oh, me, this happened to me, and it certainly has affected me and it affects how I'm operating in the world. Or maybe that person has overcome that and healed that part of themselves, but at some point there's this part that has shame or guilt or some sort of energetic attached that lives within the personality. Well, the soul is here really to guide us, to bring us into that place that says, here is your opportunity to heal this piece. And when we heal that, then we can come into a higher place of compassion, unconditional love, even forgiveness. You hear me talk about this often because this, from all of my teachings, all that I know, this is the path, how we move ourselves forward. Because if we give love within the karmic law of action reaction, then we're going to receive love from others. If we give hate to others, we're going to receive hate back from others. So if we are at the effect of a situation where we're balancing our karma again, like rebalancing that karma through some of these kind of horrific experiences that, we go through as humans, the way through that, again, is that compassion. If we move to the soul and out of the personality and say, oh, this is coming to me because maybe I need to reset my own energetic field. And, so this is where we can really move ourselves forward spiritually, consciously. This is the conscious expansion that says, somehow or another, I've attracted this into my life. And we can look at it so many different types of scenarios throughout humanity. Some people are born into this and they have a whole life of violence. and sometimes where they are at the effect of that violence. And we can also look at all of those who are the ones affecting the violence, right? They're the ones that are putting that energetic into motion. So we see that within humanity. However, as we grow, as we become aware of these things, we're going to have less and less of that. Because right now, I kind of sort of feel like, we have a lot of people on the planet. First of all, we're in a heightened state of, fear, power, control, oppression, manipulation, and violence. There is a lot of violence. Excuse me. And so even with that, when we become aware, so even if we're judging others, that judgment in itself becomes a negative karma for us. Because if we're saying you're bad and wrong, then what we're doing is that we're putting out your bad and wrong energy out into the energy field, and we're going to get bad and wrong back to us, right? So the judgments that we put out there are also what we're going to have returned back to us within this karma. So one thing that we can do is that we can be compassionate. And of course, if you are a person who has experienced trauma in a very heartbreaking, wounding way through, sexual violence, I definitely encourage you to work with someone if you haven't already healed this within yourself, right? And so, because there's a very powerful opportunity to clear this out so that this never becomes part of your future incarnations. It's that forgiveness. It's that compassion. It's recognizing that everybody is coming from their own wounds. How people are, especially cruel people. Cruel people in the world are cruel because they've experienced the cruelty to them. And now they are giving it out, right? So we have to make a different choice. So we're going to talk a little bit more about making that different choice. We're going to take a quick break, another one. However, remember, this is a live show. And if there's anything that you want to talk about, ask about, you can call the number at the bottom of the screen. Or you can even text if you're on Facebook or whatnot. You can text out your your question. We can certainly address it here. And but again, I'd love to have anybody's questions come on in so that we can clarify anything too, if there is anything there for you. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we'll see you back here in 2.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. Yeah, it feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Okay, welcome back. So, looking at how through these different experiences we are, um, this is the experience of humanity. This is the experience and opportunity for us to understand that our souls are really guiding us to these opportunities to heal. And when we heal ourselves in these scenarios, we also begin to heal the collective within humanity. Of course, much of sexual violence is directed towards women, and teens, girls. However, we certainly have our fair share of men who also have sexual violence kind of directed at them as well. And in that place, we want to, like, this is also that place of that sacred creation. So if we truly look at what is being kind of defiled in that, this is that sacred creation. And so the karma can be a really heavy kind of rebalance, right? A rebalancing and all of that. However, there is this balancing act that's playing out. And again, I was talking about mindset. I was talking about judgment. If we see this as wrong and bad, and of course we want the world to heal, we don't want to do that ourselves. We're not going to go and do that. But if we can find the compassion, if we can recognize that whoever is the perpetrator, whoever is that person behind, the energetic of cruelty, of violence, of pain, of inflicting that suffering on another being, is also experiencing that within themselves, right? It's not that they're just this horrible person. It's that this is a being who is also incredibly at the effect of pain. And within that pain, inflicting it on others helps them in some way. I'm not going to say helps. I'm going to remove that from, I'm going to completely get rid of that. I'm going to move that from the energy field and get rid of that. It's not helping them, but they see that in some way that it might reduce some of their pain by inflicting it on others. And so when we're looking at this, even as a survivor of this type of violence, if we can find that place of looking in and just bringing in the compassion and knowing that that person was in more pain than I was, for them to inflict that energy onto me, we can break ourselves of that. We can heal ourselves, we can move ourselves, break ourselves from that cycle. Now, sometimes a being may never have that in their past life, and they came in and they were at the effect of that. And of course, this is about the consciousness. If we can move into that place that it's not a personal attack on us, but it's a soul's opportunity and part of this incarnation, we can begin to look at it from a different perspective. And of course, this is not normal. This is not the way our normal everyday world operates. This is not the consciousness that everybody has at this time. The consciousness is, oh, bad, wrong, and then that judgment. But this is our opportunity to heal that, our opportunity to move it forward, right? So we're looking at that. And then also, when we are born into certain families. And so I'm going to go into the families where maybe there was neglect, maybe there was abuse, where there were, I'm going to even talk about incest. I'm going to talk about how there is all sorts of that lives within humanity, not just in the United States, but we certainly have probably our fair share out of, the world, that we're looking at the fact that this also was the soul chose that family to do the rebalancing in. The soul chose that family as part of what it needed to be exposed to this type of life scenario, this life experience. So if we can also begin to expand our awareness on that, we can really tap into compassion. We can tap into, wow, look at the world, and everybody is in this process of rebalancing, right? So looking at that, will allow us to expand. It will actually level us up into a whole new level of consciousness where we are beginning to really accrue a higher vibration. If we begin to offer compassion to others, like energy, attracts like energy. This is also good karma. This is where we're extending that unconditional love to them. We're extending the forgiveness. And even if we don't know them, it doesn't have to be something that's directly within our immediate scenario. Or if it is, that forgiveness, how do I truly forgive a person for being in that much pain and trying to, redirect that pain by inflicting it on others. I don't know. People do things for their reasons and their reasons only. Again, because of that karmic imbalance that the soul is bringing us to rebalance. So looking at it from that perspective. Now, I also wanted just to mention, I'm going to go back a little bit to, of course, we're talking about families. We're talking about maybe growing up in an environment where the child didn't have a lot of safety. And so this is also a big topic that's happening right now because this is also political. It's in our politics. We're looking at, how abortion and the whole, battle of abortion is out in the forefront, especially in the United States between, pro-life and pro-choice. And I want to talk about this from a spiritual perspective, because everybody is going to have their own deeply felt, deeply rooted, um, alignment with how they believe and how they feel about that, right? And so I just had this conversation over the weekend, and therefore I wanted to bring it into this conversation because especially when we're looking at incest, when we're looking at rape, when we're looking at, mother's boyfriend, gets the 12-year-old daughter pregnant, like these things are real and they're happening in the world. And that there are a lot of abortion laws out there that don't allow for, the person has to, the force by making this a legislative law. What this becomes is that it forces people to not have choice. And again, this always comes down to freedom, free will, and choice. And I'm going to do my best to break it down as quickly as possible because this is a personal experience for each person who might have that. Whatever that person is experiencing is part of their karma. It's part of their karmic opportunity to either heal or whatever their choice is. And even on a spiritual level, within pregnancy, is that the spirit doesn't come into the body until the third trimester. Because that first and second trimester, oftentimes, there's all sorts of different complications within the body that the avatar, that the fetus, that the embryo and fetus can then, abort within itself. And so there is a spiritual process where the spirit descends into the human avatar body, bringing it to life fully in consciousness. Now, again, the body itself is alive, sure, but there isn't a spirit consciousness in it until the third trimester. So, of course, with third trimester abortions, that has a whole different there's so many different things about that I'm not going to say one way or another. This is between a person and their medical doctor and their health and their history and part of their karma. Because even for that to even be on the table is a karmic opportunity for that person. So if we have legislator preventing us from choices, this is karmic. This is a karmic thing that's happening for them. They're preventing other people from making their own choice that's going to help them either, work out the energetic imbalances within one's own person, right? And so and I wanted to say that because even in sidereal astrology, Vedic astrology, some of these other, there's like 52 or 56 different types of astrology that are out there that that they even make a note for when the soul comes in, which is about 3 months before the birth date of the individual. Now, of course, but it's within the third trimester. So even if a preemie was born, that preemie is still born within that, at least at the very beginning of that third trimester, because developmentally the baby can't really survive or function until it gets to that third trimester, even if the lungs are still premature, even if there's a lot still going on there. And so, and of course, there can be people that say, no, actually, there's this, this baby that came in earlier than that. So in that case, there's always different scenarios, right? But even the spirit coming into that baby, let's say the baby was, born at 4.5 months utero and just, half fully formed, and they put that baby on all the different types of, you know, um, I don't even know all the different equipment to help that baby develop. They're going to put that, put the baby into its own little, incubator with all the things that are going to help that baby develop. Even the health issues that may arise within that child is part of that spirit who chose to come into that child to have those health issues and to rebalance whatever it was that maybe they had experienced in a previous lifetime. So encourage people to look at it like open the mind and expand with that everything that's happening is connected. There's something that's coming in for the spirit soul to learn. The soul takes us to these different places. The spirit is there and getting informed. And that spirit is that part of us that travels through each incarnation and grows and expands and learns from every part of it, so that we eventually come to that place where we can move ourselves into that higher consciousness. And we talk about the spiritual teachers, the spiritual gurus, those who, the ascended masters. These are those people who know that no matter what's happening in the world, no matter how cruel, how horrible, how tragic, how, catastrophic, that whoever's being at the effect of it is an opportunity. It's that spirit soul opportunity to grow from it, to learn from it, to rebalance, or whatever it is. There's so many possible scenarios for how we grow. So we can't judge. It's not a judging thing. It's a compassion thing. It's a recognition and understanding. And again, that elevates us, levels us up. And then in our next incarnation, we're going to come in with that awareness. We're going to be in a whole nother level of awareness. We continue to grow that, right? And we're not going to necessarily go all the way back to a time where we're going to be, I don't know, tortured, for example. But even so, even if we did go back to that time of tortured, we're going to come into that place that says, like the Knights of the Templar, they were tortured through their unconditional love and forgiveness, even within, the divine spark. So I'm bringing ancient history forward. We're going to take another quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get connected. We're going to get connected into that compassion of the world, and what we can see as some of the tragic, horrible things that are happening in the world. But during this time, it's really important for us to expand our consciousness around it. So go ahead and take a quick break yourself, and I'll see you back here in 2.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation.
Welcome back. As we conclude our topic of intimate karmic relationships, I want to also invite the listeners, viewers, to consider looking at Gary Zukav's book, The Seed of the Soul. And I actually was just listening to this. I have it on audio. And I think he might be celebrating his either 25th anniversary of the book, or maybe it's 30th year of the book. So he wrote it some time ago, but it's a classic, beautiful book that really also talks a lot about this from this perspective. He definitely goes in to really kind of detail it out a little bit more. And so this is a place that maybe you could go and get more information on. But he talks about the soul in many different in many different contexts, right? And so, but really kind of connecting into that this is our life journey, and the life journey is the soul journey. And when we are connected into that soul piece and see that everything that comes our way is our opportunity for expansion and growth, and just really being able to sink into that, we can upgrade our lives in such miraculous ways. So it's really about shifting that perspective, right? So I'm going to put in my on my media notes on my website, which is www.andreadragonfly.com/media. I'll go ahead and put his book under tonight's session for just tools that you can take a look at, because his book is beautiful. I've already read it once and I came back to read it again. And I'm also talking about it with a couple of my clients that I work with and friends. So something to take into consideration. And again, you can find that at my website. I'm going to invite everybody at this time to do a connection within themselves. So, like I've been doing for most of the shows, I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, really just regulating your energy bodies. And I invite you to bring your awareness into your heart space. This beautiful space. We can always grow to be bigger. We can heal the wounds here if we still have activated wounds. But just tap into the love that you know you have. And we've been doing this the last few shows. Connecting into that love. Now with that love, I invite you to connect into some part of humanity that has been very hard, cruel, torturous in some way. Maybe this is your own experience that you've had, or maybe this is somebody that you know, or maybe this is a story that you've heard. And I want you to bring that love up to the best of your ability. Bring that love up and just surround the players in that story. Who were the people involved? Was it a one-on-one? Was it a perpetrator? I don't want to use the word victim. But the person receiving the energy of that perpetrator. Surrounding them both in love. I want you to tap into the fact that we don't know their stories. Even if it's your own story, you don't know your past incarnations. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be guilty of. This is just part of the human experience. So we can remove ourselves from that place of self-judgment even. But just, the spiritual, the conscious experience of being human. That which grows us and expands. And I'd like you to really, if you can, shine as much love light onto the person, onto both people, no matter what the scenario is. How terrible you might find it within your own energy core of not ever wanting to be in that situation, or again in that situation. This is the compassion. The compassion that the world, the whole world, and again we talked about 8 billion people on the planet. We all have action and reaction. Whatever we are doing to others will come back to us. We don't have to know the story of their lives. All we need to do is recognize that if we want to evolve, if we want to grow ourselves consciously, then we bring the compassion. Surround them in unconditional love and compassion. We can continue to do this. As your eyes are closed and you're connected into that space, I encourage you throughout this week, throughout this next month that's coming up soon enough, through the fall that will be coming in, especially through the presidential elections that are happening. So over the next several months, really kind of tap into this place. Know that wherever there is any type of power, control, oppression, a lack of the ability to give choice and freedom and free will, that there is a karmic imbalance there that will need to be balanced. It'll come at the same velocity, at the same strength, at the same power of it all as well. And again, just shining that compassion, unconditional love light. Just bring this forward. Bring this forward into your walk in life, your journey, knowing that this is the way that you accrue your own positive karma, moving yourself forward, assuring that the effect, that the energy you give out, you will in return reap as well. So taking another deep breath, letting go of this vision, but yet holding on to the invitation, bringing yourself back into the end of the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, to get connected with you, looking at how all these things are interconnected. So I wish you all a beautiful week ahead. If you'd like to reach out, of course, you can reach out to me through my website, AndreaDragonfly.com, www.andreadragonfly.com. You can reach out to me at connected.dragonfly through Facebook and through Instagram. So everybody, be well. We'll see you next week.
This has been Connected with your host, Andrea Dragonfly. Join Andrea each week on an extraordinary journey, exploring the consciousness of energy and how you are connected. Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.